it is good to be a man. It is good to be a man. Chapter 9. No gravitas, no manhood. It was a good chapter. Gravitas, something that I need more of. I am not a very gravitas kind of man. There's not a lot of people that look at me and say, boy, that guy, he is one serious dude. That's not really me. That's not really me. But it's good to have something I need to work on, because we all got to work on our manly traits, right? And we got to work on it. But it says, no gravitas, no manhood is the chapter's title. He says, what does grown up mean? What's it mean to be a grown up man? He says, usually it means getting gravitas, a virtue which refers to a man's seriousness, his dignity, his weight, is what it translates literally to in the Latin for weightiness there. He says you can't inherit it and you can't fake it. You either have gravitas or you don't. Gravitas is the result of having settled into your identity as a man when you become proficient at being a man. And Pastor Michael Foster relates that to your settled in your Christian identity, being a Christian man, reflecting the glory of what God has made in being a man and embracing what it means to be a man, which he talked about in the previous chapters. We're not ashamed of, it's not toxic masculinity, it's godly masculinity. God has made us masculine because he wants us to be masculine. If you are male, God wants you to be male, and he wants you to be masculine. He does not want you to be effeminate. He wants you to be a masculine man as he has made you. But he says you don't want to be a self-serious man, meaning you can't laugh at anything, that you're just too serious. Nobody takes that kind of guy very seriously. They don't think he has gravitas. If you're just so serious that you can't laugh at anything, then that's not good either. There's got to be a balance there. But normally our culture falls on the side of being not being too weighty, but being not weighty enough, with frivolous entertainment, comedy. Everything's comedy. You turn on the TV, everything's a comedy. And actually, you could say, what are they making fun of? Usually, it's the male patriarch in the family who is just a complete joke. He's a total failure. He's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. He's Homer Simpson. He's whatever, right? He says the comedian is our modern priest, standing on a high place before us, publicly confessing our terrible deeds, our guilty habits, and our wicked thoughts, and removing the shame by turning it all into a joke. Well, that's kind of a profound thing that I've heard other people comment, that comedians are the only ones in our society right now who can tell the truth. And even now they're getting canceled. For a long time they could tell the truth, but even now, like I've heard comedians say, they won't go to college campuses because it just nobody can take a joke there. So now even comedians can't take. Our priests are now getting canceled too in our culture. But he talks about the idea that genuine gravitas must be earned. That you can't fake it, but that you have to go through some hard stuff to get gravitas. That's why a lot of times going into the military, it could be a really good thing for a lot of men. Now, obviously not if you got to go to battle and you get PTSD or something, then it's not a good thing. But if you learn to be serious, you learn to take commands, you learn to know that the work that you're doing is weighty because people's lives are on the line, things like that. Could be a good thing for you. Or earning it through having a family, having to provide for a wife and for kids. Well, I've seen some guys, they get married early, they grow up really fast when they have to provide. I mean, there can be a weightiness there as well. And he kind of ends in the chapter with wrapping up that older, wiser men are so important in the church to bring that gravitas to the church, to bring that weightiness to that we are in the church, in God's church, we are talking about and we are holding up, not just talking about, but we are holding up the important weighty things. And we need men with gravitas to hold up those weighty things of God in the church. Now, another article I was reading, this is related to this, another article by The Art of Manliness. Anybody been? I'll put a link in the comments to this article. But it was a really good article about gravitas. And so I thought I'd read a little bit there from The Art of Manliness, Brett McKay talking about lessons from Walter Cronkite in The Art of Gravitas. And so he opens up with, in ancient Rome, there were 4 virtues that were considered the chief pillars of manhood. First was pietas, piety, meaning duty, religiosity, loyalty. Usually today we think of piety as just like somebody very religiously devoted, but it wasn't quite the same thing in ancient Rome. It was more like doing your duty, being religiously devoted, had some to do with it, but then loyalty to your cause, that was related to pietas or piety. Dignitas, having dignity, status, influence, prestige, that was manliness there, that was manly. Virtus, meaning valor, virtuous, valor, manliness, excellence, courage, character. And then gravitas. Then gravitas was in there. And he says these 4 celebrated virtues, and he says that one man then who really, in his opinion, displayed the gravitas was Walter Cronkite, the CBS news anchor, evening news anchor, that I guess had a show for over 6 decades, which is pretty amazing that he was in the, maybe he didn't have his own show, his evening show for 6 decades, but he was in the news cycle, in the news business for 6 decades. I mean, the man was very accomplished in that. I think one of the things he was most well known for was during the Vietnam War. He was the one that would come on the evening news, Walter Cronkite. But in the voice, he had that weightiness. In his attitude, he had that weightiness. He was not flippant in the way that he would portray things. I think that's good. They called him Uncle Walt, I guess, back in the day. I mean, that was way before my time, but Uncle Walt would come on. It's pretty good. He had the gravitas. And if you are seeking to be a more manly man, because it's good to be a man, then you'll need some gravitas. I got to work on it too. And luckily, the most weighty thing that I can really ever say is that Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Postmillennial Man.